In the heart of a city that never slept, where the gears of industry ground against the pulse of ambition, lived a man named Felix. Felix was not a man of grand gestures or loud proclamations. He was a thinker, a dreamer, and a meticulous architect of his own potential. In his small candlelit studio, blueprints covered the walls like the skin of a legendary beast, each one a testament to a brilliance that the world had yet to see. Felix was a man who believed in the absolute sanctity of the perfect moment. To Felix, every idea was a delicate crystal that could shatter if exposed to the world too soon. He spent years refining a single invention, a revolutionary engine that promised to harness the very wind itself. While others built, Felix reflected. While others stumbled, Felix calculated. He watched from his window as the city moved in a blur of motion, often scoffing at the clunky, imperfect machines his neighbors produced. He called them reckless. He called them impatient. He believed that when he finally stepped into the light, his perfection would dwarf their hurried efforts. One crisp autumn morning, a proclamation was pinned to the center of the town square. The Grand Council sought a visionary to power the city's new industrial hub. The reward was not just gold, but a legacy that would be etched into the stones of history. The deadline was short, only 30 days. For Felix, this was the signal he had waited for. This was the stage. He returned to his workshop and looked at his engine. It was 90% complete. Any other man would have finished it in 2 days and submitted it. But Felix was not any other man. He looked at the valves and decided they could be smoother. He looked at the pistons and thought the alloy could be more resilient. He spent the first week recalculating the friction coefficients. He spent the second week sketching a more aesthetic casing. "The world must see it at its best," he whispered to the shadows. "If I rush, I am no better than the amateurs." As the third week approached, a young woman named Clara, who worked in the scrapyard 3 streets over, knocked on his door. Felix looked at her rough sketches and shook his head with a patronizing smile. "You are moving too fast, Clara. Your gears are misaligned by a fraction of a millimeter. It will vibrate. It will be imperfect. You should start over and calculate the load again." Clara thanked him, but she did not start over. She went back to her yard, tightened the bolts, added a splash of grease, and kept moving. She didn't have the luxury of time. She had a family to feed and a fire in her belly that wouldn't let her sit still. By the final week, Felix's engine was a masterpiece of theory. It was beautiful, silent, and potentially world-changing, but it was still on his workbench. He worked through the nights, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling with the weight of his own expectations. He was so focused on the perfect version of his machine that he failed to notice the silence of the city outside, the silence of a race already being run. On the morning of the 30th day, Felix finally polished the last brass fitting. He stood back, admiring the shining marvel. It was flawless. He carefully packed it into a crate, hiring a carriage to take him to the Grand Council's hall. He walked with the chin of a victor, but when he reached the hall, the doors were already closing. The banners were being taken down. The crowd was dispersing, cheering a name that wasn't his. "Wait!" Felix cried, rushing to the guards. "I have the entry! I have the engine!" An official, draped in a heavy cloak, looked at him with pity. "The selection was made at noon, sir. You are 4 hours late." "But look at this." Felix ripped the crate open, revealing the shimmering engine. "It is perfect. It is 10 times more efficient than anything you have seen today." The official leaned in, acknowledging the beauty of the work. "It is indeed a marvel, Master Felix, but the contract was signed 2 hours ago. The city is already breaking ground." "With whose design?" Felix asked, his voice cracking. "A young woman named Clara," the official replied. "Her machine is loud, and it vibrates more than we'd like. But she submitted it on the 10th day. While you were polishing your gears, she was building the future." Felix stood frozen in the middle of the square as a light rain began to fall. He looked at his perfect machine, still, silent, and useless. He looked up at the sky, the words of his own failure echoing in his mind like a mantra he would never forget. Success loves speed. Felix didn't go home to mourn. And he walked to the scrap yard. He found Clara and he offered her the one thing he had left, his knowledge, but he didn't tell her to slow down. He told her to go faster. He finally understood that the most perfect thing a person can be is active. The engine of life does not run on stillness. It runs on the heat of action. And from that day on, Felix never missed another door.